this is good. We are here. And that squeaked.
Yeah.
That was really loud and it hurt my ears. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I hope I hope it really didn't pick up for you guys that are listening early. You didn't pick up that squeak. So yeah. Hopefully your ears aren't bleeding right now.
Like ours.
Like mine is, my left ear especially. That was really squeaky.
Yeah, it was.
But either way, we are here to have a talk. But before we do, I just kind of want to say hello to my guest today. Her name is Camila.
Hello.
And I met her at Anchor Church. We have a lot of friends in common. And she actually volunteered you guys to come on the show and share some perspective on the topics on hand. And if you guys are new and tuning in, this is a continuation of the series of talks that I've been having with a female perspective. So this is going to be my fourth installment of the series of talks that I'm having. And so she's here to kind of share a little bit of her personal experience, insight, and just her point of view, because I feel like everybody has their point of views, their different perspectives, their different experiences, and stuff like that. So it's real cool to kind of get into those talks with different people from all walks of life, and I personally wanted to do it with a female perspective. So if you guys are new to the show and just tuning in, and you want to get on previous episodes on the talks with different guests with a female perspective, go ahead and link yourself onto the podcast on the YouTube. I'll leave the links on the description so you guys can tune in and share with those that you feel can use that conversation, because I feel like there's power in dialogue, and that's the whole concept of just having these different conversations and stuff like that. But before we do, we just wanted to say hello, and first and foremost, thank you for driving all the way from Miami.
Yep, 305.
305 representing here from Miami. So I really do appreciate you just coming in, carving some time out for us here at Kingdom Talks, and just, talking about what we're going to talk about. But before we do, how are you and how's things going? I feel like we haven't talked in a while.
I know. It's been good.
Yeah?
I can't complain. Life always seems to get in the way. There's always something new.
Yeah.
But life has been good. I've been, like I said, I've been serving at Anchor, at church. I started being part of like a completely new department at work. So things are looking up, and I'm content with it. Mondays are always difficult to deal with, so but
I know. I call it the Monday blues.
Yeah.
It's always really it's always a struggle, because you're kind of coming off that weekend high.
Yeah.
And even though you don't really do much over the weekend, because this weekend I happened especially this weekend, I didn't really do much, but just kind of like relaxed, did the day-to-day stuff, like going grocery shopping and things like that, and doing the adult thing by running errands. But I didn't do anything spectacular to go out. I didn't go to the beach, didn't go to the restaurant, the bar, or whatever the case may be. I just kind of just chilled. Mm-hmm. I had my brother's kids too, so I was just kind of hang out with them. Nice. I took them to the park, and that was just the extent of it. And then yesterday, we kind of just slummed it at the house because they slept over for the weekend. We watched movies. I watched a little bit of football because the football season started. So it was pretty cool. And then they got picked up, and I was just kind of like had time to kind of disconnect and just be by myself. Because don't you feel like sometimes you got to just be by yourself?
That's the most important thing. I think sometimes we're constantly around people, and not even just around people. It's like it'll be doing something at the grocery store, like you said, running errands, just doing stuff, even watching a movie with someone. But sometimes you just gotta be by yourself. Be by yourself. Because I think the world so fast paced that you don't have enough time to like really think.
Yeah.
That's how I feel sometimes when my weekends are packed.
Yeah.
That it's like, okay, I rested and I would spend time with family, but I didn't have time to do anything for me.
Right. Yeah, it's my therapist always would tell me that it's always good to pick days to literally disconnect.
Yo, yeah.
And by disconnecting, only because we live in such a social media driven society, like when you disconnect from people, also disconnect from this.
Oh,
and for those who are watching on YouTube and not on Spotify and Apple, I'm waving my phone at the camera. And that's like what it is. And I don't know, my iTunes has been really bugging out lately. I have no idea why. But yeah, it's like it's good to disconnect from people, but also disconnect from social media and connect with the Lord. You know what I'm saying? I think that's so important, especially for those that, you know, that are in that faith walk, in that faith spiritual journey. I think it's essential. We think that it's not sometimes because, like you said earlier, you get caught in the busyness of life that it's always like, what's the next thing? Right. And what's the next thing? You know what I mean? And you get caught up in that.
I mean, personally, I think that sometimes people don't really realize how, first of all, you have to think about it. Mm-hmm. We're constantly on our phones. At work, you're constantly talking to people. If you're driving, you're listening to music. Yeah. Your mind is never, even when you're by yourself and you're watching a movie, whatever, your mind is constantly thinking about other things. Sometimes I've learned to just completely shut everything out. And I mean, not even have music in the background. I mean, just lay in bed, sit on the couch, and just listen to silence. How ironic is that? Yeah. Listen to silence, because you don't realize how much your brain needs to relax, because you really only have your brain relaxing when you're sleeping, because if not, you're on your phone, you're watching a movie, you're even reading a book. It's like, usually like people try to be philosophical. It's like, my winding down time is reading, but even then your brain is constantly working. So it's important. I mean, sometimes I used to, when I would, like you said, when you're on your faith walk, I would pray, and I would always have to have like an instrumental in the background.
Me too.
How crazy.
Like that elevator music, right?
Why do you have to sound more spiritual? Like, I don't know. Yeah. And then I realized that's kind of a mistake. Yeah. And I actually read a book, amazing book, called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Such a good book. And it really got me thinking about that kind of stuff. Like, why do I have to have music in the background? Why, when I'm getting ready for work, I have to have Netflix on? Why do I have to... It's just, your mind is going to be so wrapped up, and you don't have any time to really just breathe, like really to have time for your brain to relax. Because it's constantly being stimulated by everything else that's going on around you.
Have you been emailing my therapist, bro? Because that's literally what my therapist says. Like, seriously, when we talk about that area of like processing and getting wholeness and getting centered and, just disconnecting, like that's what she essentially like advises me to do. It's like, hey, get off your phone.
Of course.
It's like, you don't have to answer to everyone's call. It's not just social media. It's like texting and answering a phone call. Like, I remember her saying, it's okay for you to say no.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, because I'm such a people pleaser by default that I used to be really bad, but I'm better now. But back in the day, I used to say yes to like almost everything.
I used to be the exact same way. Same way. Yes to everything. Yeah. It's like there was, I don't know if it's because I want people to say yes to me, that I'm just like constantly saying yes. Yeah. But I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I always wanted to say yes.
I think there's a little bit of that though. Like, I think looking back and when I reflect back, and even now in real time, I'm kind of reflecting back as you said that, like I kind of feel that way. Like, I felt that way where I'm like, well, I'm saying yes to an invite, so when it's my turn to invite, I expect that back kind of thing. So I think you get caught up in that too, where it's just like, well, then when I want to do something, I expect someone to say yes to me kind of thing. But it does get overwhelming, because then you get caught up in this vicious cycle of you always staying busy and you always pleasing others, and then you lose yourself in that moment, or in that like season of your life where you kind of sort of lose yourself, and then you find yourself frustrated, arguing, and kind of having some friction with your peers, and then you're wondering why. And then when you really start peeling back the layers, you're like, oh, it's because I'm just so wound up, and I haven't really had time for myself. Because it's so important for us to really self-care and love on us first, in order for us to have the capability to love on others, because if we can't love ourselves efficiently or effectively, we're not going to be able to effectively love our neighbor.
Exactly.
You know, like God calls us to do that, but we sometimes fail when we are always caught up on the next best thing. Like, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do next?
Right.
We're never present sometimes.
Exactly.
And I think it's because of the social media.
Yeah, no, I agree. If Jesus himself had to go and leave people to be by himself, would wake up at 4 or 3 a.m. to go pray to God, why are we any different? Why do we, and he was pretty firm. Sometimes I talk about it with my friends, and sometimes the things that he would say would be firm. And I don't know, sometimes he would say things sarcastically, like when the disciples would ask something, he would say kind of like, are you serious right now? Kind of like, you know, he had really quick answers, like smart answers to them. And so I think we can be that way too, in the sense of, you know, if I need to say no to somebody, I have to say no. If I can't answer you right now, I just can't answer you right now. And learn how to do that. I think so. Sometimes I'll be checking social media for no reason. It's the same story there, the same people posting the same thing. I turned off notifications on my phone, so I don't get any notifications.
I did that too.
Okay?
Yeah.
For the first few months, it actually worked. Wasn't on my phone. Screen time went like an hour a day. Great. All of a sudden, I picked it back up, like checking text messages. No one's texting me. I have 0 messages from like 2 days ago. I'm still constantly checking text messages, constantly checking Instagram, trying to see the next best thing. Why? For what? For what? It doesn't really benefit you. Right.
No, for sure. Absolutely. I think me personally, because I have a platform and I'm on the podcast and I like to push content as a content creator, it's kind of hard to avoid the social media. So what I try to do is like, okay, I'm being more responsible with it. So what I do is, what I try to do anyway, is like at a certain time of the day, I'm going to dedicate 15-20 minutes, because it doesn't take me that long to engage with my following and posting this and posting stories, and then posting an actual post or maybe a reel that I made, and that shouldn't take me more than a half hour. 30 minutes tops, and then I got to get off. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to get into a habit of that. And sometimes I do well on certain days. Other days, I find myself, oh my gosh, I've been scrolling for 2 hours. What am I doing? So like then you replace social media, and guys, pray for me. Pray for me, y'all. I would replace social media with Netflix. Oh yeah. So I would get on Netflix and I'll be binge watching, bro. Like, what have you been binge watching lately? What show?
Right now, Manifest. I'm very behind with Manifest.
Yo, that is that's such a crazy show.
But listen,
that's a crazy show.
This all goes together, because you were saying you're a content creator.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to be on social media.
Right.
Like, there's no other way that you can promote it if you're not. You can't go around handing out flyers.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's important, though, is that this content is being created.
Yeah.
Because me watching Manifest instead of watching a productive podcast or listening to, I don't really gain much from watching Manifest.
Yeah.
It's entertaining. It's entertaining.
And that's probably a way to disconnect too.
Right.
And
You know what it is? I think it's the time management.
Yeah.
We want to do things excessively. Like, there's no reason why I had to finish the first season in a weekend. Think about that.
Yeah.
There's no reason.
I finished season 1 though.
Yeah, like 13 No, that's what I'm saying. 13
I'm on
episodes.
season 2, right?
Yeah, season 2. So 13 episodes. I think like 45 minutes.
And
your time was ready.
Yo, that show is crazy though.
It's a really. I obviously don't want to say anything, but new season is coming out on season 4.
Yeah.
We're over here promoting Manifest.
I know, right?
But yeah, it's really.
Or Netflix, like Netflix is not paying me a dime. Not they need the promotion, because everybody has Netflix.
Everybody.
But that's the thing. Like, I replace social media with Netflix, and Netflix has shows. They got great shows. I mean, I'm a movie buff, so I like movies. I like watching movies I haven't seen in a while. I like watching new releases that they release on Netflix. I just recently watched Mark Wahlberg's movie called Father Stew.
Yes.
Based on the true story of Stewart. He was a amateur boxer, and I'll give you guys a little bit of a tease so that way you guys can go check it out. Great, powerful movie with an amazing message, especially if you guys are, in your walk of faith, in your journey. It's so encouraging because it's basically a story of an amateur boxer who peaks past his prime and he doesn't get to the next level, and he reaches the age where he should be on the next level, but he's still in the amateur circuit. So he's frustrated. He feels like he hit a ceiling, and he's just mad at everybody in the world, right? And then all of a sudden, he goes sees a doctor that comes back with a really, really bad report, like, hey, you need to stop boxing because your jaw is XYZ, your brain doesn't look really healthy, you're showing signs of CTE, yada, 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 right? So not to get too much into it, he's then proceeds to drinking. So he gets really into drinking, and alcoholism just really gets a hold of him. And then he realizes through an event that happened in the movie, so I'm going to leave it at that so you guys can go watch it, and it lands him in prison. Not in prison, but in jail. And he's held in jail. His mom bonds him out. He pays his fines, and then his mom's like, baby, you got to do something different. You can't box. Like, you're way past your prime. Boxing isn't it. And so he decided that, well, I'm a performer, and boxing is like performing. So the next best thing is for me to be an actor. So I'm going to pursue acting. So my man literally moves from, I forget where the movie takes place, but somewhere in the Midwest. I want to say Wisconsin, but I may be wrong. And he moves to LA with a couple bucks in his pocket, couple cents in his account, with a couple bags, and he moves to LA to pursue acting. That something goes awry, and then that's where the movie picks up. So go check it out. He has this Jesus moment, and it's really, really powerful, man. Really, it was encouraging for me just to see how God can take such a crazy, messed up situation and turn it for good.
Right.
Not only blessing him, Stu, the character, but blessing people around him and the influence that he had because of it. So I was just like, wow, I was mind blown. I was encouraged because I'm a man of faith, obviously. So yeah, go check it out, guys. Father Stu, it's on Netflix. But yeah, Netflix for me is a way for me to disconnect, but I've been wanting to disconnect in different ways. And the way that you described early on is a very healthier way. Disconnecting by you just staying quiet, staying in God's presence, and just staying in the present, like just staying quiet, staying with no background noise, with no elevator music in the background. Because sometimes what happens is our generation is a very anxious one. A lot of us have anxiety issues. A lot of us are medically diagnosed with anxiety who are currently taking medication for anxiety. I, for one, am naturally angst person, but I haven't been medically diagnosed, so I don't take medication for it. But I know people that do, and it's a struggle for them, right? And so a lot of it is really disconnecting and getting comfortable in quiet.
Right, yeah.
So I don't know how you did it to get comfortable with quiet, but that was a struggle early on for me.
I mean, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, for sure. I think for me, it actually started because I was having a lot of anxiety, started having panic attacks. And I think we're also a society that it's quick to say, oh, I always have panic attacks. I always have anxiety. I'm always stressed. We throw around words all the time, but I had actually experienced a panic attack.
Oh, me too.
Where I could not breathe. My chest was like tight and exactly what they described being a panic attack. And then I said, I'm doing something wrong. Like, I have to be doing something wrong because this isn't life. Like, I shouldn't be going to work, coming back, and have feeling this way, or I shouldn't be going out with friends to dinner and then the next day I'm having this amount of stress.
Right.
So for me, it was really asking God, number one, how, like, to give me the strength and patience. It's all about patience.
Yeah.
To allow me to just sit and be content with my own company and his, because at the end, I'm alone, but I'm not alone. I'm with him. And I actually took that time also to talk to him, to be able to say, like, this is what I'm going through.
Yeah.
This is where I'm feeling. I even sometimes just complain about people to him. You know, oftentimes we say, like, oh no, we always have to thank. I complain about people to him. I complain about my day. I mean, that's really what it is. And I found that super therapeutic, that now I crave it. I wasn't able to do it this weekend, for example. And so now I started off the week already with that, like, anxiousness of, I have to wait another 5 days to be able to have that quiet time, when really I could just make time to do it, because I have time for everything else. And so once I started doing it little by, I mean, first it started as 5 minutes. I couldn't last. I had to put a timer on 5 minutes. And now it's like, I just decide, hey, I'm going to do it. And I can tell, you know, an hour will pass by, hour and a half. And then and you feel good afterwards. Like now I just don't need the timer. I don't care who's calling, you know, phone on do not disturb. I make sure that I obviously don't have anything, you know, to do, you know, later on, just so, because I don't want to be that person either that misses something. But I realized how important asking him for the strength, for the patience, because I tend to not have patience. Yeah. And then doing it little by little, because it, like I said, doesn't happen overnight. Yeah. It does not.
And it is therapeutic, and essentially you grow. Yeah. You know, so it is a therapeutic thing for you. That's part of self-care. That's a regimen that I like to get into more often than none. I have a lot of us have like our morning rituals. Right. For you night owls out there, you guys have your nightly rituals. I'm not a night owl anymore.
Neither am I.
I'm more of an early bird now. So I like to have my morning ritual, my morning routine, and things like that. But we do live, now on the topic of anxiety, right? So we have a bit of an age gap, but we are part of this generation where it's all around us, where you could literally have a conversation with a coworker and it could be anxious. You could feel the anxiety that's like literally coming from that person when they're describing their struggles, when they're describing their mental health, even if they're able to open up to you in that way. But we see it and we hear it. It's all around us, and it makes us anxious about things. You know, you turn on the news and, you know, the conflict in Russia and Ukraine, that's still going on. Stuff that's going on in China, that stuff is crazy. Then we have natural disasters like tornadoes in Delray that we had. We just recently got a hurricane, Hurricane Ian. I can never pronounce that. And so we have a lot of things to be anxious about. We have a lot of things to feel a little bit of fear and things like that. So in that vein, like, wow, like, how do we navigate through life almost, right? When we talk about that. And it's tough because like we as young adults, we deal with what's out in the world, you know, and we deal with all kinds of struggles. People have addictions. People have, we talked about porn addictions here on the show. We talked about substance addiction. We talked about people being abused and not knowing what true love really looked like because they didn't know what it was, because they didn't have the parents who adequately were able to love them the way they should. Right. So they have like this learned behavior as what they thought what was love to be. So it's tough, you know, it's tough to deal with all these things, and it's tough to be single in this time, you know, during this time. And a lot of us Christians, it's a topic that I feel is not really talked about on platform about singleness, because a pastor is typically not going to say too much about singleness because they're married in a thriving relationship with their own struggles. So it's hard for them to give a take on singleness. So sometimes we don't know how to proactively deal with being single, for example. So I know that's tough for girls too, because you guys are out there like, where's that Christian man that's gonna sweep me off my feet and lead me and things like that. And there's a lot of doubt there, and we hear things and see things that men that claim to be Christians do to women and stuff like that. We hear it on the gossip columns. We hear it on people's social media, bad mouthing Christian men because they did this at XYZ. And it is tough. It's just as it is tough for you girls. It is also tough for us.
No, I agree. I've always tried. I guess it's because I have a brother and he's 10 years younger than me.
Oh, so there's a big gap.
So I'm his mom, basically. I'm obviously the oldest, in the Latina household. Like I'm the daughter, I'm the oldest one, I'm the one that's supposed to make the difference. So I guess I've never wanted to, stereotype men because I have a brother. I don't want to do it to them. I mean to him. And I have boy cousins that I grew up with that are like my brothers. So I never wanted to, but I think that in general, like you said, men and women are constantly put in that category, like, oh, you're a Christian, so yikes, And I think it's difficult because we all struggle with whatever we struggle with. I mean, no one struggles with the same thing, but we're all struggling. So we can't, I think as a woman, I can say that sometimes we set the bar too high when we're also dealing with our own situations. Yeah. Like for me, I have a problem with, like I said earlier, I'm a people pleaser. And sometimes I have these moments where I feel like I'm behind in life. And so sometimes I would have brought that into my past relationship. And, I don't try to, if I am struggling with that, how can I expect to tell my partner, you have to fix your issues. It's like, I haven't fixed mine. So how can I be, I think that's the whole thing of when you're single, learn that when you find someone, you're going to have to fix issues together.
Right.
That he's, she is going to be your partner to help you through it, to navigate. And it's not two halves coming together, it's two whole people coming together.
So I asked this question with my previous guest, or my previous guest. I forget which one I asked, but on the whole healing thing, right? Because you just said it can't be two halves. Right. It has to be two wholes. How do you get whole, right? Because I actually struggle with this. Like I've been in a fair share of serious relationships. If I'm going to be honest, I've had 3 serious relationships, right? And I've known buddies of mine that had, really serious relationships that went multiple years, and then it just
stops,
ended abruptly, and it was a break, and then they never got back together, kind of thing. And then a lot of people will come to me and say, hey, my therapist will say this too. It's like sometimes what happens is that because of the traumas that we deal with early on, and because of the backgrounds that different people from all different backgrounds, different walks of life deal with, sometimes they don't know how to heal from the trauma that they experience. For example, I had a friend who came from a broken home, and the father abandoned them. And when the father came back in the picture, he abused them physically and verbally. And it was very early on. He was only, I want to say 6 or 7 years old. And it went up till he was about 10, 12, 13 years old. So it was a long, enduring thing that he experienced. But the father would always say, I love you, but I love you, and I'm providing for you, and I'm back in your life. He would justify his way of treating them by saying, I provide and I love you. Wow. So that essentially turned into what they thought love was. Oh, it's okay that he beats me and that he verbally lashes at me because he provides and he loves me. So what happens is that young boy turns into a young man, and then he finds himself at age 22, 23, 24, 25, acting like his father to his girlfriend.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And I could see that, you know what I'm saying? So, and vice versa. Like I knew a friend of mine in New York. She came from a broken home. Father cheated on the mom. The mom got a divorce, and the father tried to kind of still be in the picture, and he would come as he pleases because the mom would allow it. Wow. Even after the divorce. So then, as a young girl, she saw that, and she says, "Oh well, it's okay to do that. Yeah. Even after a divorce, it's okay for him to take advantage of me because he loves me," or whatever the case may be. So we don't know how to love, right? Because we come from these places where we were loved on, but it wasn't love. The right way. You know what I'm saying? So if let's say I meet someone who comes from that background, and they haven't healed, and they haven't really navigated through how to heal from that trauma, to find themselves, to find the true definition of love, to really know what love is. Typically, you would find that through the love of Jesus, through the grace of the Lord. And if you go through those processes, then you'll know what true love is. If they don't go through that process and they come latch on to me, I'm going to love them the way I know how to love, right? But then they don't have the capabilities to love me the way it should be. And that's where the friction is going to start. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen it with people. Like because I'm a very analytical person, and whenever I'm with my friends who are couples, even back in the day, like I would see how they would treat each other, and I would know their stories because these are friends that I've known for multiple years, and I would see their stories and I would know their stories, and I would be like, yo, do you have that gut? You ever been around people, you have that gut feeling, this is probably going to last 6 months?
Yeah, like it's like, I don't want to be the person to tell you, but you know.
Yeah, but you just see, it's like, I give them, and it sounds cynical. It sounds a little cynical, but it's also real, man. Like you're just being a realist. Like you could just literally look at a couple and be like, that'll last 7 months. That doesn't work. Yeah. That'll at best it'll be 7 months, and then it'll just erupt and implode.
It's also because you just know your friends. So you know when they bring someone, it's like, this isn't the person for you. Yeah. Like, I know you. But
do you feel that way? Do you feel that you have to be a whole person, that you have to somewhat understand yourself and know how to love yourself before you involve yourself with someone else?
Right. So I think when I say whole, I also don't mean that you have to have life together.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Like, I think oftentimes people are like, well, I'm never going to have my life together completely. Right? But I do think that you have to recognize your flaws. You have to recognize what you do wrong. I was talking about it with my friend the other day, but she was saying that all of us have like this faulty flaw, right? Where we all we have friends and we know, okay, this person has this type of flaw. She said my flaw was when I meet someone, whether it's a girl, it doesn't matter who. When we meet someone new, I always have to say, oh, that person's kind of weird, huh? Like, I always have to say that. She says, like, why do you do that, Camille? Like, why do you always think that someone is weird? And then I say, I don't know. Probably because I don't know them. And she goes, exactly. Like, why do you have to immediately judge that? Like, you have to first hang out with them a couple times for you to, like, not say that they're, like, weird or that they don't do. So I was like, okay, yeah, that is my flaw. I do that, and I have to recognize that.
Although some people do give weird vibes.
Well, sometimes people are awkward when you meet them for the first time. I'm also not. I'm an introvert extrovert kind of person. Like, I'm very outgoing, but I can be quiet at times when I don't know someone too well because I do have like a weird, goofy side. So sometimes I hold myself off. But so she was just explaining this to me about how we all have flaws, but we accept those flaws. She's like, that's your flaw, but we're still friends after 10 plus years. Like, I still, I told her, that her flaw was that I complained to her and she just kind of sits there like analyzing me, like she's like there, and I go, I don't like that you do that. I want you to tell me, like answer me.
Right.
So we just laughed. She was like, that's your flaw. So I think, and we said, we have to know each other's flaws to, you know, to get better. And just this thing. Then, you know, when you were saying all these stories about your friends and their families, you know, those are generational curses.
Absolutely.
Generational curses that I think you have to also recognize. You have to notice, this is not who I want to be. I came from a great home. I'm very lucky.
Blessed.
I thank God every single day for the parents that I have. They love my brother and I so much, wholeheartedly, always put us first. You know, of course they would have their arguments as couples, right?
Right.
But I do notice, for example, their communication skills sucks.
Yeah.
Terrible. They're best friends, whatever, but they never learned how to communicate. As soon as one says something, the other one gets easily offended. It turns into a fight, and then the next day they make up. So I started doing that in my past relationship.
Yeah.
I would say something and I would never want to talk about it. It's like, no, you said that to me. I'm offended. Don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Good night.
There's no way of like effectively trying to communicate the issue.
Right. So it's like
in a manner where you can find a resolution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then he would say, we need to sit down and talk about it.
Right.
We need to communicate. And it didn't help that he was a communicator.
Yeah.
So obviously his strength was communication. So I would think to myself, like, why, like, you're right, I can't do that. I can't observe, like, my parents don't know how to communicate, so then I'm going to go into my relationships, whether it's like a boyfriend, friendships, co-workers, not communicating well enough.
Right.
I started noticing that at work too. Someone would say something offensive to me, I would say something back, I'm done with the conversation. No, that's not communication.
Right.
So I think by saying, like, to be whole, to go in, is to see those flaws, to recognize that. If you're in a moment of singleness, I think that's the perfect time to recognize, what do I do wrong? What did I do in my past relationship? If you never had a past relationship, then what do you do wrong in your friendships? How you communicate with others? There's certain things that you can do to say, how can I be better? Because we're not perfect. We know that we can always get better. So asking yourself, what can I do to become a better version of myself? So that person can, and then obviously there's going to be arguments, you know, there's going to be arguments in friendship or disagreements in friendships, in relationships, and you have to recognize that sometimes it's your fault too.
Yeah.
You know, I love those memes that always say, like, my girlfriend's always right, or the woman is always right.
Yeah.
But it's like, we're not. And I think women have that tendency to say, like, I'm right, it's my way, or the highway. Yeah. No, because that is toxic.
That is.
So toxic.
And it's selfish too.
It's, because it's the truth, you know? Like, if I didn't recognize, if he didn't tell me, or my friend didn't tell me, or Camilla, you don't know how to communicate, how was I going to get better?
Right. Absolutely.
I was going to live my entire life just not knowing how to communicate. And so I'm working on that. And I think that's what helps. Also, when I say about whole things too, is like learning what you like and keeping what you like, not sacred, but making sure that you don't lose part of yourself when you're going into that relationship. Not losing your friendships, not losing your interests, not losing, your routine. Yeah. Because I genuinely think up until the point that you're married, there's no reason to have this like routine from like 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. with that you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You have to, there's fast-paced society. Yeah. As soon as you start dating, then you want to include that person in every single aspect of your life. And
I think it's natural to do that.
Right, it is. And I think, but sometimes it overwhelms you.
It does,
and so then we have those relationships that were for 6 months, you were with that person 24/7, and then it just...
Yeah. Because I'm into the gym, right? So I have my gym time, and I remember a long time ago when I got into my first serious relationship, I guess we can call it that. My first serious relationship, I lost myself. And I allowed having a relationship get in the way of my gym routine. Right. And the gym was a place for me to be free, was a place for me to decompress, it was a place for me to just be me and be around the guys and lift weights and you know when you're lifting weights you're actually releasing stress and you're actually releasing dopamines in your brain because you're going through this natural high when especially when you're weightlifting. And I allowed my relationship to kind of like get in the way of that. And then I wasn't going to the gym as often. And then when I would, I'll drag her along, and she wasn't a gym head. So she would just go on the treadmill and stare at me and making sure that I'm working out and stuff like that. And it was just kind of like, it became not fun. Yeah. You know, and then you lose yourself, like you said, like you're not hanging out with the boys as often. You're not playing, you know, I'm a huge basketball player, so I play ball with my boys, and I at least I try to make time to play basketball with the boys, and it just got in the way. And it does get overwhelming, and you don't realize until you're actually there, and you're like, and you have to like take a step back and be like, how did this happen? Where did this all how did this all like unravel? And it's because you allowed it to. You subconsciously do it, and then you don't realize that you did until it actually is like your whole world is kind of like crumbling. Like, oh my God, like how come I'm not doing what I used to do? Why am I allowing my girlfriend to, you know, dictate how I do things? Like, just because you have a relationship doesn't mean that your own life stops.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
and a lot of us
get like
go ahead.
That. No, it's because it's true. It's like it hurts because I see it in friends a lot that you know, they get into a relationship, we don't see them. They're talking to a guy for a few weeks, we don't see them, and then they stop talking to the guy, and then we see them all the time. It's like your life can't stop because of that, and that's why I'm saying I may have exaggerated, obviously, once it's like, oh, until you get married, you know, but there's a season when you do start to develop into that, you know, you bring them around your family, you bring them around your friends, but if you stop going to the gym, if you stop doing things that were for you, you're obviously not focusing on yourself, and then that's also when problems start. That's also when you start subconsciously getting angry, but it's like you told her to go to the gym with you, so why are you getting angry at her? But it happens. It's natural. It happens. Which also doesn't take away from the fact that learn to do what your partner likes to do too. Like go, you know, sometimes people are, I can't think how many times my friend would say, I love going to the movie. Like she was a movie person. She would love going to the movies. But her boyfriend hated going to the movies. So it turned into they never went to the movies. And she just was like, okay, we're just going to stay at home watching Netflix. But he could have made the sacrifice of just going to the movie once a month. Or, you know, that's why there's a balance.
Sacrifice does have to happen, you know?
Of course. So finding a balance so that both of you can do what you guys want. Because then you're just going to be biting each other's heads off. I think, like, and that's the same thing. I always say, relationships, friendships, same thing. Because if I'm constantly telling my friends to eat what I want to eat, and it's like, okay, Camilla, at one point, Camilla, we can't keep coming to the same exact restaurant. You know what I'm saying? Relationships are the same way. You can't be just dictating and only having it your way.
And it's so great. It's great that you said sacrifice, because we can actually segue on what love is, right? And we talked about it off camera. But I think it's worth talking about love being a choice. And I think culture will tell us that love is an emotion. You know, Disney movies will tell you that love is an emotion and it feels great, and it's a happy-go-lucky thing, and it's a happy ever after kind of a feel, right? But if you look at love in the Bible, right, it wasn't a choice. I mean, it wasn't a feeling. Like, Jesus didn't get up and say, hey guys, can't wait to go hang on the cross. Like he even spoke to God and said, God, why have you forsaken me? You know? And it's clearly love is a choice. And we have to make, you said it earlier, we have to make these sacrifices. If you really do love someone and you're choosing, that person chose you and you chose that person, you started courting, you started dating, and now you're in a full-blown relationship, XYZ months go by, and now you're making choices, right? So when you start making these choices, you have to also make the choice to sacrifice. You also have to make the choice to learn your person. My therapist says you can't just have a GED on your person, you have to have a doctorate.
Right. Oh,
Wow,
that's good.
Yeah, shouts to my therapist.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Wow.
You have to constantly learn your person, because and I'm going to put it in very simple terms. If, I'll use me for an example. If I liked hot cocoa, right? But my buddy introduced me to this whole new world of cold brew, and I love cold brew now, and now I don't like hot cocoa, but my girlfriend knew me for all these years, knowing that I loved hot cocoa. So when she comes with a cup of hot cocoa with the whipped cream and all that stuff, I'm gonna go, I'm like, babe, I don't want that. I actually not into it. She's gonna look at me crazy. You know what I'm saying? But that's gonna be a learning moment. Right. Because then I could open up to her and say, I actually got into cold brew. And it's amazing. Like, the caffeine hits different. You know what I'm saying? It's just cold brew it's amazing. It's iced coffee on steroids. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. She's gonna pick up on that, and now she's gonna know
to bring you cold brew.
to get me cold brew whenever she meets up with me. But that's literally going, hey, I learned something new about my partner. Right. Now I'm going to act accordingly. Now take it into a much grander scheme of learning your person. Like, I don't know, you're on a spiritual walk and they like certain devotionals. You know that they are into devotionals, so for a gift, you're gonna get them a journal. You know, things like that. So, but that takes effort. Yeah. And that takes you making a choice to love your person the way you love them, how you're learning them. But people deviate from that. Oh yeah. They deviate from that, and then they're like, what are you talking about? Why are you acting this way? I thought you liked that. What do you mean? You never told me that. So that's lack of communication, that's lack of almost everything, but the main thing is you're not communicating, you're not learning one another, and it's causing friction, so you're constantly arguing and bickering over silly things. Yeah. So what happens is that amounts to where you get to a place of bitterness, you get to a place of resentment, you get to a place of not being loved. So you're feeling love because you're not feeling loved because you're not effectively loving your person, and that person is reciprocating that same energy back to you. So you're there, both of y'all sitting looking crazy, sitting like, you don't love me, and I don't, and you know what I'm saying? So it just snowballs into something that really isn't anything. If you would have just stopped and took some time and made the choice to say, you know what? If I'm saying that I love my partner, I have to follow it with some type of action.
Of course. I agree. I mean, sacrifice. I think sacrifice is one of the ways that, obviously, the biggest way that you show love. Right. Like you said, we saw it with Christ. I also think that we need to learn the love languages of your partner.
Absolutely.
Obviously.
That's always my go-to. Right. I have to make sure. Yeah. What's your love language?
You have to communicate that. If I say my love language is words of affirmation, and you don't tell me for an entire day or something, you know, it's like literally a day. Yeah. That you don't appreciate me.
That's my love language, by the way.
Or please, words everyone, send him a text as soon as
That's my love language.
No, words of affirmation. Or a gift. If you don't give them a gift, and I don't mean like you have to give them a gift every day, but you know, even making something, stopping some, I don't know, sure. Like it just quality time, touch their leg, a pat on the shoulder, hug them. Like that is, people need to learn that. For example, and sacrifice is like a big thing. Yesterday, I got home from church. I have to drive all the way to Boynton because I live in Miami. And I was driving back home, and I just kept saying, I can't wait to have lunch, and I can't wait to sleep. Sunday nap, right? The best. So every Saturday and Sunday we have family lunch with my 2 cousins, my uncle, my mom, my dad, and my brother.
Yeah.
So the 7 of us. We're always every Saturday, Sunday without fail lunch.
Yeah.
And so I went up to their apartment, had lunch, and as I was getting ready to leave, I said, okay, I'm heading out. I'm gonna go take my nap. My 2 cousins and my brother, we're going to the park. We want you to go. Well, at first they didn't say it like that. At first they announced it to everybody saying, we're going to the park.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to come? No one said they wanted to go. They keep insisting. I go, I look at the dads and I go, hey guys, you guys should probably go with them to the park. And the older one says, actually, I want you to go with us. Like, you're convincing everybody else, but we want you to go.
Yeah.
So I had to make the sacrifice in going. I did not want to go.
Yeah.
I did not want to go. And when I tell you, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I was very tired. I serve in the kids ministry. They go wild. I just wanted to rest. I just wanted to sleep. But I thought about, they want to spend time with me. What's sacrificing 2 hours watching them play soccer? I love soccer.
Yeah.
Obsessed with it. I'll just go watch them play soccer.
Yeah.
It's fine. And when we left, it ended up being super productive because my cousin started asking me about my faith.
Aww.
So if I wouldn't have been there, that conversation wouldn't have happened.
That's awesome.
It wouldn't have been like, oh, so this Jesus guy,
Yeah.
And I got to share. And so I think about that. Sometimes our sacrifices begin to produce fruit. Because for me, that wasn't really, having the conversation of Christ really, for me, is not beneficial, quotations around it, not beneficial because I already know the truth, right?
Right, yeah.
But being able to share it, because obviously as a follower of Christ, your heart hurts for the people that don't know him.
Yeah.
So you want to. So of course it was a benefit. But I'm saying I didn't have to have that conversation.
Right.
I could have easily slept.
Yeah.
But it was just nice to be able to share that. And if I didn't make that sacrifice, I wouldn't have had that. And so how many times do we do that with the people that we love?
Yeah.
That we don't sacrifice? And it could have been a benefit for the person receiving.
Yeah.
And the person giving.
That is so good.
So it honestly blowed my, and I thought about it the entire time in the car, and I was so nervous about what to say because I was like, oh my gosh, there's a reason, God makes everything to the T, everything, every second.
Right.
And so it just shows how many times haven't we sacrificed
And I love the fact that you just said sacrifice produces fruit.
Oh yeah.
That's a post right there. Yeah. I'm about to steal that.
No.
But it's so true. Sacrifice does produce fruit because we're talking about dating, right? If we don't sacrifice for our partners, then what kind of seeds are we planting? What kind of fruit are we going to bear if we're not going to sacrifice little things or even big things? Like if your partner is into the theater and there's a Broadway show coming into town, hey, buy tickets. And even though you don't like the theater and you're not into the Broadway, you love your person so much that you're going to make that sacrifice to endure this show, but you know that your partner is going to love it and you're going to have quality time with your partner, and that in essence will create good fruit in the long run because you're sharing a common interest for the moment, and maybe you'll tend to like it. You just never know if you open your horizons to new things. That's why it's so great to learn new things from your partner, because it keeps the relationship new. It keeps the relationship with a spark, if you will. And I think we just tend to, after that honeymoon phase, we tend to just go on cruise control.
Yeah.
When it should be the opposite. When the honeymoon phase stops and the obsession stops, that's where love should start.
Yeah, that's good.
But we don't do that.
No.
We like to coast because we got her. Yeah. Especially us guys, because we love the high of the pursuing. We pursue it. It's that high we're gonna pursue. And when we finally get them, and you finally pass that honeymoon stage, we tend to. And I'm at fault. I've done that in the past, in past relationships. Like we tend to cruise a little bit, and we pump the brakes a little bit, and then sometimes we just get stagnant, and we don't even make an effort to be there for them, make an effort to be thoughtful and buy them roses just because it's Wednesday.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They told you that they weren't feeling well. They got a cold or they got sick. Go to the CVS store and get them a nice little care package with Halls, Benadryl, or whatever, and make a little nice care package for them to make them feel that you were thinking of them and that you want them to get better and you wanted to make them feel good. That's all love. That's all a choice. You're making these sacrifices. You're making these choices that is essentially the byproduct of what love is.
Right.
But we don't, sometimes we don't operate in that. And I see that in me, I see that in other people. And that's why I feel like a lot of us do fail in the relationship department. I mean, we can thrive in everything else.
And
like
that's
in our, and that's the one thing that we tend to fail. And I just want to have these conversations too, because I want to give hope to those people who feel hopeless.
Yeah.
For those people who got walked all over, to those people who got betrayed, who those people who got left for quote unquote left for dead spiritually, because a lot of people have felt pain, that they felt like, oh, that I can't believe this person just walked away and gave up on what we had going on for XYZ reason. And I know that well, the pain that we feel is a real thing, you know, it's a real emotion. However, we shouldn't let the pain hinder us from learning from our experience to be able to grow and be better versions of ourselves. So when we do open ourselves up to the next person that could potentially be a mate, you'll have something to take with you and of say, course. This is if I like this person, I want to learn this person, but this is how I'm going to navigate through this relationship from the previous one that I've learned from. I'm going to take what I learned from that and apply it to this new one.
Of course, yeah. I think part of that, you know, what you were saying before is we get comfortable.
Yeah.
We get very comfortable. Like you start pursuing, and then for women, it would be like at first you're like very nice and sweet, and then like the craziness comes out. Like you start yelling, you start doing. So I think we get comfortable. We get way too comfortable.
Yeah.
But I love that you said that you learn from the past relationship to bring it to the new relationship. I mean, I've had people, well, I think 99.9% of the population always has something negative to say about their ex. Like, always has something negative, always this, always that. And sometimes it is that way. Sometimes the relationship was bad. Yeah. Sometimes it ended in a horrible way. Yeah. And you have to block them and you have to do this. In my life, I've only had 2 serious relationships. And for both of them, I would never say anything wrong about either of the person. One was obviously when I was way younger, like high school and then part of college. But I would never say anything wrong because I learned, you know, it was nice moments that we shared and it just ended amicably. Like that's all it was. But I did learn a lot. Like I learned a lot and I take that with me with whatever I do, because at one point you shared that with that person and they learned a lot about you because you spent so much time with them, vice versa, that if they said something, you know, that it's kind of what we were saying before. It's like taking that and using that to better yourself, like taking that and better, you know, for your next relationship, for this, for that, because oftentimes we complain that they're giving us the truth. Yeah. But maybe it's just what we need to hear. Yeah. And sometimes relationships, just, you know, like you said, it's painful. Sometimes relationships don't work out just because. And I think that's even more hurt. Like it's more painful.
Because maybe the timing.
Yeah.
The timing, you just got it off. And it's okay to have the timing off. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know.
You love that person.
Yeah.
You love that person so much, but the timing isn't right. And all you can hope is that God is going to bring that person back. Absolutely.
Because I do believe that. I do believe that even I believe it for myself. You know, I got out of a relationship, but I don't have any ill will towards the person. Was I frustrated? Was I angry? initially when things went the way they did with my previous relationship. Absolutely. I had a lot to blame for myself because I didn't handle certain things the way that I should have. I did get out of character because I was just led by the emotions, led by the flesh, and not led by the spirit. But that's something that I have to learn.
Right.
And that's something that I had to take and come into terms with. Like, yo, I had to learn that. And, sometimes we just have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And do I have ill will against her? Absolutely not. I do have respect for her. I don't think that she's a bad person. All of us deal with traumas that we've experienced early on in our lives and even into our teenage years, our young adult years, or through our entire adolescence, we experience some stuff.
Of course.
And those create scars, those create wounds. I know that I have some wounds that weren't fully healed and stuff like that. So now I have the time to fully heal. And she has the opportunity to do so too. Do I believe that maybe her and I will ever rekindle? I can't say that, but what I can say is that it's in God's hands.
It's in God, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if God wants to do His way in taking my situation and her situation individually and work on us individually and somehow get us back together, then that's God's will. You know what I'm saying? And that's just okay to think that and it's okay to pray that. You know what I'm saying? Like I can pray for her, for provision. I could pray for her health, for her spiritual cleansiness, for her spiritual walk, for her soul. I could pray for all these things, for her relationship that she has with Christ, because I have, even after the fact. You know what I'm saying? Like I've prayed those things for her. Now, I at the same time, on the same side of that coin, I have to pray that I also heal, that I also take accountability, and I also walk in this season that He has me in order for me to have insight on the things that maybe I lost sight of. You know what I'm saying?
That's good, yeah.
Because that's the only way that you can be an effective person, like in general, not necessarily an effective boyfriend, but just an effective friend.
Of course.
Just because I think loving on people and understanding people where they're at is also your job to do. You know what I'm saying? That's like, if I really love someone and love to be around that person, I want to make sure that I ask, for example, I can ask you, how can I be an effective friend? How can I be better? You know what I'm saying? Caleb, shouts to Caleb. He texted me a couple of weeks ago, random text. He was like, "Hey bro, how's it going? Yo, quick question. Like, how can I be a better friend?"
Love that.
And I'm like,
love that. That's
I was
so
like,
good.
that is so good. And I'm like, yo, bro, that's awesome. Like, I can't think of anything right now because he's just been so good recently, because he knows like the walk that I'm walking and he knows the season that I'm in and stuff like that. And I've shared a lot of things, and I shared a lot of my heart to him, so he knows what I've been dealing with, struggling with, and stuff like that. So the only answer that I could really apply was, bro, right now I can't think of anything, but you've gone above and beyond for me, because you've prayed over me, you've checked up on me, you even fasted for me. Like, you've been great, bro.
Yeah.
Like, you're thriving.
You're
what I'm saying?
doing it. You're doing that job.
If I'm gonna nitpick, if you could just answer my text messages on a timely manner, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's what a friend does. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a girlfriend boyfriend situation. Just friends in general. Like, if we really want to have like a intimate, meaningful friendship with our peers, like, that's the kind of stuff that we need to start doing.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think I like, kind of that we're going into that friendship topic for a second, because these past few months have been very hard for me. I've also been walking in a very hard season, very difficult season. I had the loss of a family member in a matter of 3 weeks from her being diagnosed. And I realized how difficult it can be when you're experiencing that. Obviously, no one ever expects to experience that kind of loss. And when we had the service for her, 2 of my friends showed up, which I wasn't expecting it at all. They knew it was going to be in Spanish. They both speak English. They don't, they don't even, my mom's side of the family is Catholic, so they had a priest. They're both not Catholic. I'm not Catholic either, but it was them showing up without me even saying anything, without me even, just for them to sit in an hour talking about my aunt's life. They didn't know her, but it meant something to me. It meant the world to me, because in that moment, I was so heartbroken. I was at a loss. Yeah. And for them to be there, it meant everything. Yeah. It meant, and I didn't have to tell them. Right. They just knew. Yeah. And it goes to show that people will make sacrifices if they really care, if they really, but sometimes they don't, because they're also afraid of doing that. But it's just that sacrifice. It honestly feels good to know that you have those people in your corner, because even just receiving that simple text, it's like, wow, I trust this guy. I trust this guy. And I think, whenever I experience something, something bad, also, like, I know that I know I have them. I know they'll show up, and I don't even have to tell them to show up, because that's also an important thing for relationships too. Don't wait for your partner to tell you to do something when you already know. Right. When you already know what you should be doing for them.
Yeah, because what's the use of learning your partner, learning all these things, and then you don't follow suit with showing up with certain things that your partner likes, or your partner's, whatever. Well, I guess we could wrap it up with this, because we've been talking about sacrifice, love being a choice, not an emotion, friends and relationships and singleness, right? We also touch on traumas, right? And we also have to be mindful that we can't be quick to jump and judge people because they don't love you the way you expect to be loved, because we don't know their story. We don't know, we may not know maybe that they're dealing with something, because a lot of us, we deal with our silent storms that we don't share, that we internalize. So maybe, and just maybe, there's always that outlier, right? That maybe this person's not making the sacrifices, that's not loving you the way you expect to be loved, that's not loving you the way love to be, because they just don't know how. They just don't know how, because they're not there yet. I go back to that story about my friend not knowing how to love. That person was unable to effectively love her partner because she just didn't know how to. She didn't have the tools to, because she came from a broken home, and she came from an abusive father. You know what I mean? Yeah. So sometimes we can't judge a person by the way they interact with us while we're getting to know them, and then while we make the time, and time goes by, and 3 months go by, and 4 months go by, and then you start going, hey, but things were going great, and now all of a sudden they're not going so great, because I don't feel loved, I don't feel validated, I don't feel this, we're not compatible. Yeah, the list goes on and on, right? And it's maybe because that person hasn't probably fully healed, and that person probably hasn't been equipped with the tools to effectively love you. So you got to step back too and say, hey, I know it's not me, because you should know yourself, right? And you should be comfortable enough to say, I know my worth, I know the value that I have. It's not me. Right. Yeah. Maybe it's something with them, and we tend to judge people and jump on people and cause this friction, like, hey, why'd you do that? Why'd you do this? How come you're not this? And why did you forget to do that? And we just don't know. We honestly at times don't know what traumas they've been through, what wars they've gone through, and we just it's so easy to judge. It really is.
Be patient with them. Be patient with them.
Patience, yeah.
I think that's be patient with them. like Christ was patient with us.
Mm.
That goes all to like the love, the sacrifice, all of that patience.
Yeah.
Because even when we're healing like ourselves, when we're healing from the trauma, we have to be patient. You have to give that person the same courtesy,
right?
Because it just doesn't happen overnight.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. And walk with them through that. Be listening to them, not trying to rush them, because you have to think about that. Whatever trauma it was, it can be something that it will take maybe months, maybe years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if it was years of trauma, it'll be years to recover from it. Yeah. So
that's really, really like the agape love that it's talked about in the Bible. And I a couple of weeks ago, I want to say, I posted on Facebook, I posted, when you love someone, when you're struggling yourself, that's true love. And it really is, like, because I remember I went, and we'll end it with this. I remember I was struggling and I was in a really bad place. And randomly I bump into someone who I had a conversation with, I think a week prior, and they were going through worse stuff than I was going through. And I bumped into this person, and he's like, "Yo, what's up, bro?" And it was actually at a park, and I just finished playing ball, and he was out there too, running the track, and we just randomly bumped into one another, and I was just like literally weeping.
Wow.
And he was like, "Yo, you all right?" And I looked up and I saw that it was him, and I'm like, and I feel bad because I know what he's literally going through.
Yeah.
Like, and it's worse than what I am going through. So I'm just like, oh, nothing could be, but I didn't want to really open up, but I did anyway. And like, he had all these words of encouragement, and like, he really made me feel good.
That's beautiful.
And I'm like, dude, you're going through some crazy mess right now. And you had the patience and the love to pour into me while you're going through, because I know you're going through some stuff. And right then I knew that was genuine love.
Yeah.
I knew it was genuine love because I knew that he was going through some stuff in real time. Like, I knew this dude was going through it. And it just made it feel much, much significant and much more impactful that I literally started tearing up, and I just hugged him and I told him that I loved him and everything. So we had a moment, but I knew you just felt it. You just felt the true essence of what love is. And that's, he made a choice, and he chose to love on me where I was at, even though he was going through some stuff. Because if it was someone else, he would have been like, "Oh, okay, cool, man." Yeah. But he would have internalized, like, "Bro, I'm going through, you have no idea what struggling is." And he would have just walked away and kept it moving. But no, man, he actually made time and impacted my life in that moment. Yeah. So that's what it is, guys. Like, love isn't a feeling. It's a choice. And I know that we talked about a lot of different things, so I hope that this resonated. I hope that you don't find yourself hopeless in your singleness, because as Camila articulated, it's okay to be single, and just utilize that time to work on yourself, like you said. I don't know if you want any last words for the viewers and listeners.
It's really just to love and be patient with yourself, and the rest will produce itself. And really, if you're not a believer, seek Christ for that love.
Yes.
Because it'll be the best thing.
Yeah, and if
then you'll learn how to be able to love and all of that. And you have to be patient with yourself, patient with that. And I just think it's important. And working on yourself is the best. So. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. So this is it, guys. Thank you so much. I think that deserves that was awesome. I love it. Yeah, this was great. Like I said, I love having these conversations because I feel like these conversations are worth having, because there's a lot of people that just don't know how to even start the convo about singleness, about traumas, about mental health, about relationships, and there's no like blueprint to it. There's no like manual to do it. Like
Definitely not.
it's literally you learn as you go.
Right.
But if you are intentional and you're willing to make the sacrifice and you're willing to grow and you're willing to love on yourself so you can love on others, I think if you start there, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
You'll make mistakes because no one's perfect. We all are flawed, but man, we'll be able to get right back up just as quick, just as fast as you made that mistake. You'll be able to quickly get back up and have a go around, another go around with this craziness that we call life. You know.
Agreed, yeah.
So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Camila, for coming in from
Thank
the
you so
305.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and if you guys are new, again, I'll leave the links on the description so you can subscribe, like, share. It'll help with the algorithm, so please do so. Until next time, guys, we'll see you on the next time. Peace.